All right, hello and welcome to our biannual episode of the Longform Analysis and Retrospectives podcast. Scratched our plans on what episode 5 was going to be back in December with the G4 TV stuff. But I think the smart thing is we don't make future plans, we just respond to kind of present situations here. This podcast kind of serves dual purposes for me. I like introducing people to smaller long-form creators, but it's also just a cudgel I use to respond to, preemptively respond to criticism and stuff. Today's topic is punching down. This is preemptive to something that I think I'm going to have to deal with a lot when it comes to my future stream series. I have a good idea of what my next long-form game is going to be. I was kind of flirting with being accused of it last time I did a stream series with Skyrim. It's definitely going to happen this time. So I thought it would be prudent to have a conversation about the topic, and I love coming up with reasons to do this podcast. So, I'm your host, Patrician TV. You probably know who I am. I'm joined by Private Sessions.
Hello.
Tetramore.
That's me.
And Salty Shrimp Pasta.
I don't know what to say, so hi, I guess.
Why don't you guys go in a circle in the order I introduced and introduce yourselves?
I don't think I need an introduction anymore if you've watched any of Patrician's stuff. The latest Fallout 76 video. Yeah, we're also married. Well, we were married and now we're divorced.
Keep up with the canon.
I've been deep in the Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, this podcast is actually contractually obligated. I don't actually want to be here, but, you know.
Yeah, we signed a contract for 10 episodes, so.
Yeah, so, you
We
know.
just didn't know that it was going to take like 5 years for that to happen.
Yeah, we're still going to be doing this in 2030 if that's the case.
So, yeah, you know, I did the Fallout 76, the second half of Fallout 76. So, if you watch Pat's video, I was in that a lot.
And
So,
you have
hello.
a Skyrim series that you worked on.
Yes, that too.
Tetramore?
My name is Tetramore. I am not a Metal Gear Solid content creator. I recently have been doing a Kingdom Hearts series where I've been going through every game. And then I take breaks from that to do games that I didn't grow up with, and so I don't have a lot of biases toward. So,
All right. And you recently did a video on It Takes Two, I think, with your wife.
yeah, that's the one.
Very creative project where he styles on the entire media analysis community by publicly having a wife
Who plays video games.
who plays video games and will make videos with you.
Yeah, so I'm basically the coolest person here, just so you know.
And
Absolutely.
our new guest for today, Mr. Salty Shrimp Pasta.
How's it going? So the last little while, I say little while, since November, I've been working on a video on God of War Ragnarok. I thought it would be a quick, I always think it's going to be a quick 1 month project, and here we are. Because it took too long to get it out initially, once it turned out to be more complicated than I thought. And then in April, they rolled out New Game Plus, and I got to have the do I really want to play this game a fourth time conversation with myself. I lost, so I'm on playthrough number 4 right now. And that's just made it get bigger and bigger. So there is a deadline, it's just not in sight, and I just haven't set it. So it'll be done when it's done.
And you recently released a video on Jedi Survivor Story, the first one with the redhead by EA.
Yeah, Jedi Fallen Order. So I did that. That was an interesting one because it's like I was going to be doing a video on Spider's Souls-like game, Steel Rising, and I said this is giving me some like Bloodborne, Sekiro vibes. I'm going to try some other games, some other like Souls-like games and see how it works out. So that's how I picked up Fallen Order, and then it was all downhill from there because once I played through that game, I was like, this is the most painful game to play because it's so close to being good, but it's not. And that kind of, I never got past the first 4 hours of Steel Rising. I'll go back eventually.
Eventually. You don't want to fall into the trap of trying to make a project out of everything you do, because it tends to be you throw up a lot more than you'll actually end up putting out.
Yeah, I'm interested in spiders because I did the Greedfall video not quite 2 years ago at this point, but we're getting there. And I made a big point in the Greedfall video that they had like an almost really good combat system. It was better than The Witcher 3, but that's already a low bar. Not quite a tripping hazard, but it's down there. So I saw that when I saw they were making a Souls-like, I was like, well, I mean, how good have they gotten at making an action combat system? And so Greedfall 2 is also coming out. Should be this year, if I'm not mistaken, but I haven't kept up with it.
Really?
Yeah. So apparently they're making a prequel.
What?
I would have liked if
How did I miss all of this?
Well, because it's spiders and they don't market, apparently. So, yeah, that's another thing that I'm looking forward to. It's like, well, I'm invested. I need to know, like, do they address any of the world building issues? And I'm sure the answer is no, of course, because it's spiders.
I don't think they did with their Mars games.
No, there was another creator, I don't remember who it is, unfortunately, but I heard him, it was quoted on To Snickers video, so it's down the grapevine at this point, where he said, spiders likes ideas, not details, and there's not a more perfect description for their world building. It's like, this is a really cool idea. Well, can you tell me more? No. And then they just move on to something else.
So they're trying to do the BioWare thing, but BioWare post Mass Effect 2.
Yeah, they did say in an interview, I don't remember if it was like I don't think it was the game director. It was someone in the company who said they're trying to fill the void that was left by BioWare. But I just don't think they're very good at it.
The problem with Mass Effect 3 wasn't the ending. It was the fact that they didn't explain the Leviathan enough.
True. True.
Speaking for a minute, I thought you were actually going somewhere with that.
So it's been a couple years at this point that you've been in our kind of periphery. I think I saw it started your prototype video like maybe a year and a half ago at this point.
I have to, I'm obligated, since that's one of my most popular videos, to publicly denounce it for being not serious enough. And I haven't received a single point of like criticism on that video I don't agree with. Because my standards of like analysis were just so low. It was like, do a playthrough, talk about it, kind of trying to be more than commentary, but not wanting to put in the effort to do it type thing. So it's unfortunate that that's the one that blew up. The Daggerfall video, I'm a little more positive about. I'm glad that got some traction, but that has some of the same issues. Especially since I said Dragon Breaks are cool, and I mean, they're not now.
I never asked you this, and I usually ask creators this. Is Salty Shrimp Pasta the first YouTube channel you've ever made?
Yes and no. So it's like, it's the first channel, but I didn't always do analysis content. I did, I was really inspired back when I was a teenager by like Vanoss and his crew and stuff like that. So that's what I did for forever, just me and my friends. Admittedly, making a complete ass out of ourselves on the internet and then posting it. So all those videos are gone.
That's usually like your first two channels or so.
Hey, we all come from somewhere.
Yeah, because my private sessions is like, I don't know, my fourth or fifth attempt at making some sort of channel or something. So, and whenever I ask that question, it's almost always, no, this is like my second or third attempt. So it sounds like you're in the same boat.
Yeah, once you find out that there's no... what do you call it? You don't want to have a channel that's beholden to your friends' schedules, because then just nothing gets done.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
We wouldn't know anything about that.
So, yeah, it wasn't until I got a job at a local church, working as a janitor. This was like way back in the day. And I needed something to listen to. And I think it's unfortunate that this is the origin story. I think it was Act Man and his Call of Duty Ghosts video that first got me into this sort of like critique and commentary type thing. And from there it slowly got better, I'm going to call it. The progression went like Act Man, H-Bomber Guy, Salt Factory, Joseph Anderson. It was Salt Factory and Joseph Anderson for a while, until eventually I started phasing out the less serious Salt Factory type critiques. And you can kind of see this in where I started with making videos and how they've progressively gotten more and more serious and less like I still make jokes, but I don't make the video a joke type thing. I want to say it was the Morrowind video where Pat's Morrowind video where I was like, holy crap, this is like really good. And then that kind of pivoted me more towards, I guess, that style. But, I mean, the last 3 or 4 years, I feel like I've been really hazy for reasons.
Well, I think
global reasons.
I think you've had a pretty good glow up since the last time that I had checked out your channel, and I kind of felt compelled to bring you on because I'm doing the new like submissions thing over on my server. I'm trying to get the word out on good content creators, basically. And so you're in the
I
club.
almost Oh, sorry. I almost misused that channel the other day by posting non gaming related stuff until I looked at it. I said, I don't think that's what this is here for.
It can be like movie analysis too if you want. It's just encouraged to be kind of more thoughtful stuff.
Okay, it was it was like a music composition thing. There's a channel I've been watching a lot because I'm really into like progressive metalcore stuff like that, and I know Private also listens to a lot of the bands I listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a channel called Nick Broomhall, I think his name is, where he does a series called Thick Riff Thursday, where you just kind of get to see him. You get to see like the composition process, and like I think it's interesting to watch someone's like process for actually writing music as opposed to just what we see with the finished product. So that's almost what I plugged in there, but I then scrolled up and saw no one else just putting non-critique related stuff in there, and I was like, I probably just shouldn't do this.
You'd have
For fear
probably
of
been
looking
fine.
stupid.
So your recent Star Wars video, how long was that going to be originally, and how much did it grow?
I feel like I don't really shoot for like a length. I have a pretty good idea when I go through it what it might be. I think the sweet spot for me is between 2.5 to 3 hours because that's just enough time to get into it without overstaying my welcome. So that one landed at around what I expected. I think I go by page count because I type at like 11 point double space Times New Roman. So I'm like, it's probably going to be about 90 pages or so. I think that's about what it landed. It's the Gothic franchise project that I don't think I've mentioned. That one and the God of War one are the ones that like really ballooned in size.
Yeah, because that's been an issue lately is project scope bloat. It happened with the Fallout 76 video, and boy, do we have stories to share today about that. But it happens with a lot of projects. It's going on with Mr. Sessions' City Skylines video.
No, that's slander. I started, I knew I wanted to make this a 10,000 word script, and god damn it, it's almost 10,000 words. I'm coming in at that point.
I don't know how it's going over with Tetramore, if he's suffering from project scope bloat, or if he just signed up to do a series that's really big.
Yeah, mostly that one. I mean, I typically whenever I set out to do a video, I'll kind of have in my brain like, this is probably going to end up being about 4 hours, and then it will be. I don't know how I do that, but I'm usually pretty accurate.
So I've never set a kind of desired length out of a project. Where they land is usually just where they land for me. So Fallout 76, hey, I thought it was going to be an hour. Turns out the game's way more complicated than that.
Yeah, and I try not to just like be like, I'm going to make this 5 hours. It has to be, you know, like I don't do that, but I'm typically fairly good at just being like, I think that I have about 5 hours worth of stuff to say, you know.
That's generally how it works for me. Is it's not like I want this video to be this length. It's I way underestimated this game. Having already done God of War 2018, I thought like how much more complicated could Ragnarok be? Well, it turns out that in an attempt to make the game less stun locky, I'm gonna say it was too easy to like stun lock enemies in the previous game. They added like way too many variables to the combat system that affects, I think enemy staggers is like my biggest point of contention. There's like 6 different things that affects enemy staggers, like the difficulty you're playing on, that affects it, the power level of the enemy, not just the level, but the level in comparison to your level, which is tied to your gear, that affects it, the type of attack you're doing, where you're at in a combo, where the enemy's at in their combo. None of this stuff is communicated. And so that's how you get all these, I'm going to say like day one reviewers coming out, and they're like, yeah, something's off about this combat system, but they don't really take the time to try and understand it. That's kind of where I felt as I was like beating my head against the wall, like what is wrong with this system? And it turned into like a whole 25 page breakdown of like everything I feel contributes to just the feeling of it's just a little bit off. because it's just a little bit off is way more complicated than it sounds. And the Gothic games definitely surprised me at every turn with how good they can be and also how janky they can be. And Gothic 3 in particular, it's been almost a year since I've worked on that one. I took a break, what was supposed to be a short break, because I'm terrible at time management, of course. I took what was supposed to be a short break in August of last year, and I'm thinking it's going to be about August or September before I get back to it, which of course means I got to replay all the games again, because sure, the script's like 2/3 of the way done for just the trilogy, not even everything that came after, but I was talking with someone in Patrician's Discord server, and I had to be reminded when you get like the teleportation runes to just fast travel around, so it's clear I need like a bit of a refresher before I talk about it.
Yeah, project scope bloat. It's a very pervasive problem in the long form genre, because if you don't typically have some kind of deadline or restraint system, or like, I want to make a video once a month, or I don't want to make a video more than 45 minutes or something like that, it's very easy to get caught off guard, especially by modern games and the well of bizarre decisions that have plagued the AAA industry. Because as games have gotten into it's very common now for games to take 5 years to develop and they'll be like 100 hours plus. That makes it very easy to fall into like the trap of doing it. And not every project I do, I want to be the quick retrospectives. I think those are special. And to kind of have the Fallout 76 video turn into like a medium length project at 4 hours was very disruptive towards my plans. I don't know if you guys know, I actually planned on doing that before the Skyrim video. Like last year, around the time of Elden Ring, I was going to do Fallout 76, and there was no way that was going to happen.
Yeah, you would have been doing that solo too.
Yeah, because we didn't have the collaboration. When did I pitch the collaboration to you for the first time?
It was like 2 weeks before I released my Skyrim Part 2.
Right, okay, so it was, yeah, I think after the Skyrim video came out, I turned my eyes towards Starfield and kind of working on the, because I've always liked to do kind of related games ahead of the new game coverage I do. I turned my eyes towards Starfield and I was like, okay, I'm going to get back on this. Because the plan was No Man's Sky, Elite Dangerous, Outer Worlds, and Fallout 76. It was going to be in that order. I cut Elite Dangerous from that rotation after the showcase because I knew that it wasn't going to be as relevant as the other games. So after Skyrim, it was like, okay, I got to get back to doing Fallout 76 and Outer Worlds. And at that point, I was also entertaining the GTA Online video and like wanted to test ideas related to that, and that's when I came to you about the collab.
Yeah, and the timing was perfect because I was planning on doing a Fallout 76 video like this spring anyways, so I was just like, yeah, all right, I'll just start doing that now. I was going to do a Bannerlord video before starting 76, was like, oh, fuck it, I'll just kick off Bannerlord and I'll do 76 instead. It sounds more enjoyable and probably do better too. And oh boy.
Yeah. So we had almost no idea going into the 76 project what was actually going to entail. Turns out, contrary to what the 76 community thinks, we went in with almost no expectations of what the game was going to be like.
Yeah. Well, I played the game in 2021 for like 30 or so hours. So like I had some ideas of like how the early game went. But like after 2 days of recording, all that knowledge was basically like irrelevant. And then I was basically blind at that point.
Yeah, so I think originally we had made this plan. We came up with this schedule of days that we were going to play. And it was like 5 weeks, I think 3 times a week. We totally didn't follow that because it still took 4 weeks, but we played more than 3 days a week.
We played almost every single night. I think we took 2 or 3 nights off.
I had to take Christmas off because I got really sick.
Yeah.
There's actually like a ton of coughing in the recordings that I cut out from when we were recording and I was still sick, but I was like, I was so bad that I had to stop for a few days. And then I think there was a break. I think we took a couple days break after Wastelanders. But otherwise, it was like every night.
Yeah, yeah. We did take a break after Wastelanders. We took a day off, I think.
But going in, I had no expectations of what the game was going to be like. And that was kind of a mistake because I had no idea how deep the rabbit hole went with Fallout 76.
See, I don't think it was a mistake at all. I think like our surprise and stuff, our genuine reactions as we were recording it, even like in our scripts, I think that's just golden.
Yeah, I guess I should lean towards that.
It's just unfortunate that the projects took longer than we expected to produce.
Yeah, so I was thinking the video was going to be out in March because I was trying to avoid a January, February release because that's when ad revenue is like super low and traffic dies down for a few months, and then it picks back up in March.
Especially this year. That was really bad.
Yeah, and so I was aiming for March, and then like by now the Outer Worlds video should have been out. Well, turns out Fallout 76 was not simple to cover. It was not simple to edit, and it was not simple to put together, and it was not simple to release. There was nothing about the project that was simple.
Literally nothing. Like from recording to even our release, how we had to break it up and everything like that because of all the trigger words in it. Nothing was straightforward or simple.
I was just gonna throw this in there. Your censoring was killing me. Like there were a couple little cheeky gags in the censors that I really appreciated.
Yeah, so like I actually didn't have to censor the word nuclear. It was at that point, like, because I had censored so much, it was about halfway through the video, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna censor nuclear because I think it's funny. So
reading the chat reading the live chat was hilarious when that happened.
I wrote a post on my Patreon. It's public, so you can read it without paying. It was putting the Fallout 76 project in retrospect, and I talked about a few of the things that I thought about that project because I've never done a retrospective on a project like that before, because Fallout 76 was such a mess. I think the video could have been better, but I also think the video is pretty good just for the raw element of how off guard we were with that game.
I think the thing about the especially whenever Private was kind enough to link me his version of the video before it actually went live. The thing that surprised me the most was how you guys basically. I remember back when Joseph Anderson did his Fallout 76 video, one of the things he said was like the world is great, it's got an interesting premise for a story, the game itself is just a mess. And in the wake of all of the game has no NPCs criticism, it's kind of clear where who the devs were like or that not necessarily the devs, but who the company was listening to with taking their criticism, because they introduced Wastelanders, and my God, that Raider storyline was I could pick out bits and pieces of it where I was like, this is literally just dead money without anything that made dead money interesting. It's you have the half psychotic super mutant, you have the shady businessman who's gonna double cross you,
and the ghoul.
It's like
and
you have the ghouls. Like
think of this.
Yeah, so
I was picking out
God.
so many
I made the
things.
connection, and I made the connection pretty late, and I decided against adding it because it was very close to when I wanted to release the video. I thought about adding a joke that was like, hey, isn't the point of dead money about like letting go of poverty? I guess, I don't know, like it's letting go of gold, right? Because it's a gold heist in Dead Money. But now that you like lay out all that stuff, it's like, wow, they really really missed the point of that DLC.
Oh my God.
Not to mention, it's like they missed of course, they're Bethesda. They missed critical story elements, but it's like Elijah didn't want the gold. He wanted like the hologram technology.
Yeah,
that was the point of the heist, was to get that technology so that he could basically go and like raise the Mojave. It wasn't about the gold. Just letting go of the gold was the theme. So it was amazing watching that and just picking out all those comparisons. And I was like, it's almost like someone played Dead Money, but they didn't actually. They kind of did what I'm doing with like my last two God of War playthroughs, where it's like I have the dialogue killed and I'm just listening to the music and being like, hey, the soundtrack's really good. It seems like they did that And then they're like, yeah, we're on a gold heist. We got we got the this girl, and we got the this guy, and this is this would be a really cool idea for a story.
Suit's in there too.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like they're like, this would be a really cool idea for a story. I'm gonna do this, but they're a Bethesda writer, so
Worse, they're a Bethesda
just...
Austin writer.
Yeah, so it was kind of surreal going through that, and I was just waiting for him to actually say it, and he never did. So I was like, did he know? Did he notice?
I want to say I might have
not.
picked it up if I had played the Raiders side, but I didn't play the Raiders side because I really hated their introduction, and I knew full well that story was not going to be for me. And that's the funny thing about the comments. It's like, well, it's just not for you. Yeah, I figured that out way too late.
Yeah, I listened to 2 of Rose's voice lines, and it was making my freaking skin crawl. So I don't think I would have been able to get through it, especially with Private. Can you actually side with that guy that like betrays the Raiders? It's the Meg's ex-boyfriend or whatever.
Both sides have that plot point of Raiders kidnapping one of the people. You can't side with them. The only outcome is that you kill them. But it's very formulaic in the sense that the same exact thing happens on both sides.
That's wild. You would think there'd be a choice there, but you would think a lot of things.
No, of course not.
No, because you're supposed to hate Lev. He's supposed to be unreasonable, and you're not supposed to even want to consider joining him because he called all your friends worthless freaks.
And you're supposed to like Meg so we can set her up for future DLCs, but that never happened because I have a feeling a lot of the 76 community really didn't like Meg's contribution to the story. I think they liked Foundation a lot more than they did the Raiders.
I mean, I can see why.
What percentage of Steam players actually finished the Raider quest line? Did you?
I don't know if there's
I
don't know if there's
9%.
Are there Steam achievements specific to the quest stage? Oh yeah, because there was somebody on my server who was like, I have to play the heist again to get all the achievements.
It's like 9 or 12%. It was really low.
Oh, they changed the.
Hey, that's higher than it's higher than the number of people who've beaten Greedfall though, so that's something. Or I guess the people who got past Act 1, because I think that was.
Man, Greedfall, yeah.
It's a beautiful mess because it does so many interesting things, especially with like dialogue and reactivity and how the quest markers never feel arbitrary because they wrote dialogue for your companions to be like one moment sticks out for me whenever I had Vasco. I think that's his name, Vasco, in my party, and they're like, okay, these guys, they're going to like all we know is they're going to a native camp, and it starts with W. And Vasco starts listing off the number of camps you've been to that start with the word W, and he's like, it's got to be this one, and then the quest marker puts you there. It's like a perfect way of justifying a quest marker without making it feel arbitrary. And you still do have those times where it's like, loot this specific container, but it never crossed my mind. Like, I never stopped and asked, like, well, how does Desarde know this? Like, how does my character know how to go here? Because they use dialogue to kind of facilitate it without giving you specific instructions. So I think it worked really well. But then on the other half, the freaking world building and factions, and I still remember having a psychotic breakdown during one of the, I think it was the, I don't remember the faction's name. It was the science people, basically. Is the conclusion to their plot line was absolutely insane.
Was that the...
No spoilers, but you gotta watch the video.
The Bridge Alliance or something? I was watching...
Yeah, the Bridge Alliance. The quote-unquote alliance of multiple different cultures, and it's supposed to be this like big continent-spanning thingy they're gonna rival the not Christians, and it's like, okay, but why do you guys all dress the same? Like, why don't you look like you're, like, an alliance of different people? And it's those little things where it's like, they like ideas, not details. It's like, yeah, this is a cool idea, but what about everything else? Me off. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad that you did an adequate video on that game, because now I don't have to.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember, I think you brought it up on one of the podcasts, if I'm not mistaken, because I've been following it for a while. If it wasn't, I have to give credit to Snakerer, though. His video is really, really good. And if I didn't watch his video, I wouldn't have done 2 playthroughs because I didn't know your choices actually matter, which
It's so easy to assume they don't these days.
Yeah, it's like that says something about the RPG you're playing, where it's like no, this event's gonna happen, but no, the finale to Act 1 is it's honestly impressive how well it's set up throughout the course of the story, and it just makes it all the more painful that the rest of the story is the way that it is, because it's like, you were so competent here. Why? Who wrote this? Who wrote this? Let them write everything.
Yeah, I guess it's easier to do those sort of branching narratives on a smaller scale like Act 1 provides than on the larger scale of the game as a whole.
Yeah, there's quotes from Tim Kaine and Leon Boyarsky about Outer Worlds, where they talk about that kind of their project scope bloat of branching decisions in RPGs. They made the game small scale so that they could better facilitate decisions, which is a really convenient excuse because they also get the other reasons why the project was cut short, like dev time and like pipeline issues with their with Unreal, because they were learning the engine for the first time. But I want to ask Tetra, where you got the idea for the It Takes Two video?
I just thought, first of all, it was a really cool game. Just the way that those guys make games, I can't remember their names right now. The way that they make games where both characters are always on the screen and it's only ever co-op, and their puzzle design through that is fascinating and largely very good. And then also, of course, I felt that I had a unique and valuable take on relationships and marriage and stuff like that, being in a going on 6 years strong marriage that is exceptionally successful.
Well,
not to brag on myself or anything, but
little side note before you continue, I want to ask,
Sure.
do you record every game that you play?
No.
Okay, so did you do a second playthrough of It Takes Two for the video?
Yes.
Okay. I'm always curious to ask YouTubers about that because it's very tempting to just record everything that you play.
Oh, heck no. I don't have the kind of money for storage. Yeah.
No, that's how you end up like me, where you have an 8 terabyte hard drive and it's got like 300 gigs left because 4 terabytes of it is Gothic footage, and the rest of it is eclectic games, and like almost 2 terabytes is Ragnarok alone.
What bit rate do you record at?
Yes. I would have to check. I don't know. It's I do try to let's see. There for a while, I was. I know I recorded the to save space. I recorded the Fallen Order video in MKV, and then I learned the hard way that DaVinci does not like that.
Yeah, you have to remux it, so you'll end up with an H.264 video file, anyways.
Yeah, so I ended up actually doing that. I have OBS record it in MKV and then just remux it into MP4, and then I just delete the MKV file.
So that's always what I've done, because if OBS crashes and you're recording in an MP4, it corrupts the whole file. If it crashes while you're recording in MKV, you can recover that footage.
I don't know what it is. My computer has a tendency to just kind of shut off. It does it more frequently when there's Windows updates available conveniently.
Is it also running Windows 11?
No. If I can avoid it. They rounded the borders on all the windows. So anytime you have like a window open, it's not square borders, they're rounded. You just can't change that. They just decided, hey, this is aesthetic. I decided it's hideous, but screw me, I guess. I'm like strangely frustrated with that specifically, because it's like, why is this like where you guys drew the line with what I can control on the computer?
Yeah, you could be on Mac OS where you have no control over anything.
That's true. I've talked about going to Linux, but I'm never going to do it.
So
I did that in my Daggerfall video, and they're like, hey, did you ever switch to Linux? I'm like, no, because once I thought about it, I realized it wasn't worth the effort.
when did in the It Takes Two video did your perspective on marriage upgrade to a collaboration with your spouse?
Can you rephrase the question?
Were you always going to feature your wife in the video, or what did you
Yes.
originally start? Okay, because I was going to ask if you originally started with just, I'm going to give my perspective as a married person, but yeah, you answered the question.
Yeah, so we played the game the first time and loved it. Super good, but I was like, I might want to do a video on this, and would you want to be in it with me? Because that would be a neat moment, or a neat concept that would separate. If anybody else does a video on It Takes Two, it would make mine unique, and she was super down. So
I'm mixed about your It Takes Two video, because it's like, on the one hand, you said you're Christian, that's based. On the other hand, you hurt my feelings at the end.
She was really enjoying all of the comments that were like, your wife is mean.
I figured that she would. I think it was on your, in the comments on your MGS5 video, I was like the only person. I was like, is no one gonna like shout out his wife for sitting through the entire Metal Gear franchise with him just to help out? So I'm gonna say, it's not true, but I'm gonna say I knew this was gonna happen the whole time.
She is a trooper, first of all, and second of all, she, if you all want to know the lore behind why I hate MGS2 so much, I didn't before I played through it with her, and she opened my eyes to how bad that game is.
Yeah, I played through DOS 2 recently with somebody, Divinity Original Sin 2, and it was the inverse situation. They liked the game. I fucking hated the writing on an immense level.
Okay, now I want a video from you about DOS 2. I love that game and its writing.
To give the short answer, there's a lot of like immense sins that the story does where, to facilitate the transition between acts, it will do something that shouldn't be possible.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, because you've played the game, you know what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a turn-based CRPG. You have 6 action points or 8 or whatever, right? But you have a limited number of things that you can do in a turn, and like I think in D&D turns are like 6 seconds of real time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that creates a decent framework by which events and cutscenes can happen as well. Because in the game, enemies are limited to a certain number of actions that they can do, and then you get a turn to interject if you can. Multiple times in that game, the transition between the acts will be the antagonist teleports in, does 1,000 different actions that kills a bunch of people or blows something up, and then teleports out, and your character has no chance to like intervene like it was a combat. But it's also just a way of railroading the story.
Yeah.
In particularly uncreative ways, because I was thinking about it and I was like, there are much more creative ways that they could have achieved the same narrative goals without that kind of violation of the storytelling.
Mm-hmm. So I think that I think that game doesn't work on a large scale, and I think that that's true for every aspect of it, including the ending. Like most of it just kind of doesn't work when you look at it at a big picture. When you're looking at it in a micro scale, to me, of like the time that you and the people that you meet in Fort Joy, the people that you meet in these little areas, and all of the little quests that they send you on, that stuff to me was a lot more effective. I totally get what you mean about the story being railroady, and they absolutely are doing like the whole like the DM sends a pack of unbeatable enemies in to railroad the story in a certain direction so that their narrative can play out.
I agree on the sense that its small scale storytelling was adequate or fine in a lot of cases. I stopped seeing it after Act 2 because it turned into a genocide run. There was a fight in Driftwood where, and this game does an annoying thing where like accidentally, here's what happened. There's a guy in a bar that like you hook up with a prostitute, and like you come downstairs and confront him, and you can fight him and kill him and nothing happens. But in the process of killing him, my fireball blew up a chair. The innkeeper was very upset about the chair blowing up and started combat with me. Everybody in town was upset that I had started combat with the innkeeper and joined in the fight. And suddenly, we were fighting the entire town of Driftwood in a like a 30v2 combat encounter, which we did. It was actually a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
But we ended up slaughtering the entire town for that reason. And it started to become... You can see this in my Fallout 76 video as well, that I tend to get... at a certain point, if an RPG busts my balls too much, I tend to get frustrated and just start killing NPCs if I can. And it got really bad in DOS 2 because of the way it does its storytelling. But I love the combat. That's some of the best.
Combat is so good.
That's some of the best Magic I've ever played in a game. That's what's so bizarre about it, is like it's this amazing game that like you have to be a real CRPG fan to find faults with its combat, I think. I mean, like a hardcore CRPG fan. But it's good, like co-op RPG combat that does decent magic and then some of the worst storytelling.
Has anybody played Baldur's Gate 3 to know if it holds up to the standard that DOS 2 set in terms of gameplay?
No, but I do, here in a second, have some hot takes about Disco Elysium, so...
Yeah, so the videos I've seen indicate to me that Baldur's Gate 3 will fall into a lot of the same pitfalls that DOS 2 fell into. If it is, I believe Baldur's Gate is an accurate adaptation of Dungeons & Dragons, correct? The mechanical system?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's going to suffer in those respects because it's going to be switching from the action point system to like action and free action turn-based style that Dungeons & Dragons does.
Right.
And so I think it will be mechanically weaker because a lot of Magic players who got used to DOS 2's action point cooldown based magic system and ability system, they're going to play Baldur's Gate 3 and be like, what the hell are spell slots? But the storytelling also seemed to fall into the same tropes that the source plotline in DOS 2 fell into. It seems to be like source, but this time it's those eldritch things, that the mind flayers or whatever that's in D&D.
The thing you said about the transitions being forced is what made me think. So I almost did a video long ago on Disco Elysium, but it was turning into a hit piece, so I cut it. And the reason is they do the exact same thing. So they have a system where, it's like the entire game is skill checks and dice rolls, more or less. The skill check system isn't perfect because there are a number of bottleneck skills that it's like you cannot progress the story unless you pass this skill check, but you can only pass skill checks. I think you can only try them once per level if you put an additional point in that skill. So it's already a little busted. And what they do is there are also quote-unquote impossible skill checks that even though it lets you roll the dice, you cannot pass. Now, I don't know if they've patched this out since then, probably not, but it says when you're rolling every single time, if you get 2 6s, automatic pass. It doesn't matter what it is, you will pass. If you get 2 1s, automatic failure. So even on those, if you get 2 6s on, I spent like 20 minutes reloading a quick save just to test this. If you get 2 6s on an impossible skill check, you still fail.
So is there any signposting that it's impossible?
It tells you impossible, but other than that, no.
Okay.
And it still has that message saying, like, if you get two 6s, automatic 6. It's basically already breaking its own rules.
Yeah.
They put one of those impossible skill checks in a climactic midsection encounter. I don't want to spoil it because it's been out for a while, but it's wildly popular, so it's already heresy to be speaking this way about it. They put one of those impossible skill checks in it. It's like just to force the story, and it's like this is already after you have dealt with like, because it's like it's a murder mystery, and you've dealt with like red herring plot point after red herring plot point that's going nowhere, and for no good reason other than the plot has to progress. So we're gonna like set up all these clues that and hint at all these things that just go nowhere right until the final conversation of the game. You find out that big reveals, big plot points were red herrings. They were never true. Usually what I hear because Disco Elysium has that fan base where it's like, you can't criticize it because it's perfect. So whenever you bring that stuff up, they're like, well, that just ties into the theme of the game. It's supposed to be like hopeless and nihilistic. And it's like, no, it's stupid is what it is.
Yeah,
it is.
It's a tricky balance to intentionally create a system where the player is forced to fail. There's a lot of games that struggle with doing that and tying it in narratively correctly.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to know, why do they even have the impossible skill check? Like, why even have the skill check then? If it's impossible, just like get on with it then.
It's making a point that like you're trying and you're skilled at this, but even if you're skilled at like say shooting a gun, sometimes you're gonna miss or something. That's what I imagine it's doing.
That's not even mentioning the skill checks that you can pass, but the success state is a fail state.
Oh man, I've been noticing that a lot. Outer Worlds does that constantly. There's a ton of skill checks where you'll pass it and then they'll say, "Well, you've convinced me. I don't know anything."
Yeah, it's like that. There's one where you're trying to like break into an abandoned building. You have a crowbar, and it's got like a physical instrument, which is your strength skill check. And passing the skill check, I'm just gonna spoil it. It breaks the crowbar. So you get a replacement tool, but you lose a tool for passing a skill check, just so you can take a 5-second stroll and go talk with some NPCs to like get a key.
So, like, I get it, but what you're narratively creating with failing that skill check should be interesting enough to justify forcing players to fail.
Yeah, it's like not to mention, do you seriously mean to tell me that this freaking door with a cheap rusted padlock on an abandoned building is so strong, it is so sturdy, it's made in Germany or something, that it's gonna snap a iron crowbar in half?
That is what's crazy, is I've never even bent a pry bar. I used to professionally use a crowbar in my day-to-day job, and because I was a burglar. No, but like, having professionally used a crowbar, I can tell you that you are not strong enough to break them. I think I could have run it over with a forklift and not bent it.
Oh no, man. Your character is he's just that freaking powerful. It's one of those things where it's like it would happen, and I was like, what are we? You have to stop. And I know fans of specific games don't like to think critically about those games, and I speak from personal experience, because the first time I listened to Matthew Matosis's God of War 2018 video, I listened to it for 5 seconds, got pissed off that he was criticizing the game, and turned it off. It's like, you can have that kind of, I think someone in my comment section referred to it as like rejection sensitivity is what they called it. You can have that, but it's like,
yeah.
What I do is I have to sit and think, like, what are we achieving by having this, other than the shock of you passed but you failed?
I think that's a tactful way to analyze it. So, like, you'll notice when I was talking about the Dallas teleporting in, so like Act 4 to Act 5, I think she like teleports in, blows something up, teleports out, and then that necessitates Act 5. You still could have accomplished that without doing it the bad way, because the event is preceded by a race with another adventuring party to get to it. So Dallas, they could have had her like teleport into that event and be like, I'm gonna get there first and blow it up. It fits that like you're busy fighting Alexander, and then by the time you get there it's blown up, whatever, right? But they want to have that moment of like Dallas gloating over the player for some reason, even though it's completely unnecessary. And so what you create with narrative failure has to be interesting enough to justify forcing the player to fail. So like Skyrim has forced fail skill checks, for example, and it does nothing interesting with them.
Yeah, and they could also do something. I know whenever I played a little bit after watching Mandalore's video on Warhammer 40k Mechanicus, which is a really fun game. I need to go back and finish. It's got that XCOM issue where it's like, I don't like the time aspect to it, so I just never finish it. But it does that in one of the first encounters, is you wake like a Necron Lord. I don't know much about 40k, but you wake like a Necron Lord, and he's like a level 60 or something like that, and you're like level 1 and 2, and it's an escape sequence. It's like, oh crap, get out of here. He can one-shot us if we're not careful type thing. And that, I feel like that's an organic way to do it, because it's like, one, it lets you know like, okay, this is the premise. We wake this guy up, it starts waking up the rest of the planet type thing, and that's where the time element comes in.
Classic example, Metal Gear Rising, your first fight with Jetstream Sam.
Yeah, exactly. Where even if you manage to parry all his attacks, you still take damage, because he's just that much tougher than you.
Narratively forcing the player to fail, I think, is a good thing. But you have to be very careful about how you do it.
You're taking the agency of the player out of the equation, which feels really bad when they've gotten to that point based solely on their agency.
Yeah, it's hard to invest yourself when you know that the writers can arbitrarily fail you at any time.
Yeah.
And that's always illusory, because the writers always have that power to do that in the story. But what good RPG writers do is they build this compact between them and the player that I'm not going to force you to go through that. I'm going
Yeah.
to do the work to earn that kind of scene.
It also, yeah, and like you said, it can come off as cheap. Like you just said, it's almost lazy in a way. Like, well, we need this to happen, so we're just gonna do this instead of putting in the work to think of like how can we naturally make this progress, and that's how you get impossible skill checks where it's like I think I was speccing into that specific skill on my second playthrough, and it was an impossible I was getting like 98% like success checks, and then I hit that one, and it's like you have like I think it even says like you have like a 5% chance, because I think there's like a minimum for skill checks in Disco Elysium. It's like you have a 5% chance to pass this. It's like, no, I really have a 0% chance to pass this because you've decided that the encounter's over and it's time to move on with the plot. I'm very the fact that people compare Disco Elysium to New Vegas's writing is insulting to me, because it's like, does it have an interesting world? Yes. Does it have even half the success of New Vegas's story? I refuse to believe so.
Well, what I want to know is, why do we keep making murder mystery games when Phoenix Wright has already perfected the concept?
Because some of us aren't weebs, you know?
It's definitely, I think it's one of the most interesting quest premises for an RPG. But yeah, they RPG writers could stand to learn a lot from their contemporaries. So I kind of want to close out our little discussion section by talking about our current projects and project woes. So I'm currently working on an Outer Worlds video, and the biggest issue I have with that game is that because it's 90% talking, the video is 90% people talking on screen. I don't think
So editing has been difficult.
Yeah, it makes for a very difficult video to edit because it's hard. Like, it is very hard as an editor to just say, okay, the next 30 seconds of video footage is going to be Sophia Akande talking to the player. I think Skyrim as a project was fun because it has this perfect like blend of dialogue and combat, so that you can always have something interesting going on screen, especially with the VR stuff.
Yeah, the dialogue in Skyrim is rarely more than like 2 minutes long.
Whereas and it doesn't make Outer Worlds a better game to play either, because the way that Outer Worlds approaches its writing is kind of insufferable. And so the fact that it's majority dialogue turns into a point against it, even though ordinarily from Obsidian, that would be a point in its favor. It's like, it's better than Bethesda games because it focuses more on good dialogue. So anybody else got project woes? I know the City Skylines videos suffering from scope bloat.
It's not so much scope bloat. What really happened was I spent more time playing it than I expected I was going to end up playing it for. So at this point, I have almost as much footage as I have of Fallout 76. But the footage is very easy for me to scrub through and edit. So it's not like 76 where I had to sit there and listen to everything we were talking about. So I could only go at like 2 times speed to find the stuff that I wanted. This stuff I'm able to watch at like 8 times speed. No, the main issue with City Skylines is finding an interesting way to like work in the story. Like, so my original idea was like I wanted to work in like a narrative aspect of like what I was doing with my cities and like why I was making them the way I was making them and like things that happened and stuff. But the problem is that I play the game very efficiently, and there's not a lot that's going through my head when I'm playing it that's like interesting. It's usually just like, yeah, I'm gonna just put a park here and like I'll zone this little district here, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's why it was so easy for me to do streams while playing it. That's literally one of the easiest games I've ever streamed while talking to chat and stuff like that at the same time. Yeah, that part is making it a little bit more difficult. So
Are you?
But I got a lot of
the
stuff to
narrative
talk
thing,
about.
or are you just gonna?
I think so. I started reading through it. I started editing the script today, and I think I'm just gonna pull it out because like the main stuff that I have going on with it is interesting in of itself. Like the analysis aspect of it. There's a lot of like interesting discussions that I get into because the game has a terrible monetization policy. For like how its DLC is structured. So I get to wade into that whole nightmare of like Paradox's greedy monetization, all that. Then I get to talk about modding and how, developers might expect modders to fix issues. And it's like, there's a lot of like really fun, hot button topics to get into with City Skylines. But at the end of the day, I really like the game. So it kind of makes this interesting dichotomy with how I'm covering it. And then there's just like some DLCs that were so fucking bad that it's taking every ounce of me not to rant about it for like 15 minutes.
And the 76 project lent itself way more to the coverage of the, not just what was going on in the game, but the narrative of our playthrough.
Yeah.
And what we experienced on a meta
which
level.
Which was exactly what I was hoping for. And that's why I wanted to do that project with another person, because I was going to do that angle regardless if I did it with another person, if I did it solo. But having like us constantly talking in Discord and like our live reactions and stuff made that project so much easier to do that with. And also, I think just better overall.
I want to say that's one of the things I'm glad I did with the video, was slaying the notion of it being fun with friends. It's kind of a monster that I've wrangled with since I posed it as a point. It's only fun with friends if your friends aren't if you're not being particularly discerning. When the other person is just as big a Bethesda hater as you, it turns into, like I said, a ping pong match of criticism. We would back and forth on the shit as it was happening, on how bad it was. What Kingdom Heart game are you working on, Tetra?
Oh, actually, I'm kind of in between games for that one. I haven't even started playing the next one. But
Nice,
I am,
because you're busy with work.
well, yeah. But I'm finished with the playthrough for Final Fantasy 13. That is going to be one of the next ones. There's actually a bit of a, I guess you could call this project bloat to a certain extent, but one of my woes with that video is just going to be the note-taking process. I noticed while I was playing through that game that there is a lot of really smart writing in the battle banter. That they will throw really important lines in just as like throwaways to give to the characters that really sort of play into how they are feeling at that moment. And so like what I decided to do was I'm doing my note taking this time in like a spreadsheet format where I'm going to be like taking note of like every battle, like what I fought, how long it took, what they said during that battle and all this sort of stuff. It's going to be super detailed because I just know that what's going to happen is I'm going to get to the script writing process and I'm going to be like, this character says this at this point and it's really great because of blah, 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 blah. And then I'm not going to be able to find it in the footage and it's going to bug me for the rest of time. And so I'm preemptively avoiding that, but the editing, the note-taking process is going to take forever.
You should have private sessions. He did really good with the note-taking on 76.
Well, yeah, so what I do is when I'm watching back, this is what I develop when I'm doing 76. I sit there and I watch back all my footage, and I have like a color-coded marker system. So like I'll use red for glitches or something like that. Like
you use red for that too?
Seriously broke. Yeah, yeah. Pink is like a really funny bit or something like that. Whites are the really important ones. Those are like a good example of something that I know I want to talk about. Green is also another really important one. That's UI things. So, or like examples of like Skyrim is, I use green a lot for like level up screens, going to vendors and stuff like that, because those are always the things that I have the most trouble finding when I'm editing. And then I color code it, and then I also take notes in the marker itself. So like I'll put like key phrases and stuff into the note, into the marker. And then with DaVinci Resolve, you can literally just type in, like, you can search those things. So I basically index all of my footage. And then I just need an example of me doing something, getting a level up, blah, blah, blah. I just go in and I type it, and it made editing Fallout 76 so much faster and so much easier.
Oh, yeah. No, I actually do all that stuff, too, which is
So that's like
great.
That's how I take notes, really. I don't sit there and write like in a notepad or anything. I do my notes in the footage.
I've had multiple systems. Skyrim video, I have a composition notebook that is full of notes. I think it's about 50 pages with like detailed timestamps of when in the footage stuff happened. So I could recall on that, and Skyrim helped because it's very easy to know like which footage was which playthrough. And then like all it is just a little bit of memory to be like, oh yeah, it was in this playthrough, and then from there you go down. Recently I figured out if you record your voice while you play on a separate audio track, you can use a transcription tool to speech to text it, and then you can search it in a notepad viewer, and you can control F for times that you say words. And so if a bug happens, I will say the word bug, and that way I can easily then like translate that into a marker system, because I do still use the marker system.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
is-
I do that. I do that as well now with Skyrim's the one that I'm testing that with, and it's been working really well too. So like there was a good example of that was when I was going through and I found like Khajiit caravans or something, and they were walking between cities, and that's like that'd be kind of hard for me to find like out in the wild. I'm like, I might need that, so like I literally told myself while I was recording, I was like, hey, make note of this. So then when I was going through and I was reviewing my footage, I look at my I also look at my
The waveform.
waveforms and stuff. Yeah. That's how I did so much of like the Fallout 76 stuff as well. So I looked
Yeah.
at our waveforms, and like if we were peaking, I was like, all right, I got to see what was going on there.
Yeah, 'cause
And
I guarantee we were
it
laughing.
was yeah. So like I found so many bits and stuff that I completely forgot by just looking at our waveform and like where we were peaking.
That's actually pretty genius what all of that, because now that DaVinci has a built-in audio transcription tool,
Yeah.
searching through that would be incredibly easy.
So my next thing is going to be audio note taking, but also physical note taking.
Yeah.
So, question: if you do the marker thing that you were talking about, do you have to keep that clip on your timeline?
So what you do is you set up a footage sequence that has all of your footage in it, and then you take your marker notes inside the footage sub-sequences. Mm-hmm. They're not sub-sequences.
What I do in DaVinci is I actually use the media screen or the media tab, and I just pull in the clips into there, and I just review in that, and I make sure you put the clips in the attach the markers to the clips and not to your timeline. That's why I don't do it in the edit stage, because it's very easy to end up putting that in your timeline instead. If you are doing it in the edit or cut stage, whatever you want to call it, make sure you hit F, and that brings you over to the media viewer, and then you put it in. So like when I was doing it in that stage, what I would do is I would scrub through, and then I would hit F and then M. But the media page just does it automatically. So
And
that's
for any
how I prefer to
creators
do it.
listening, I can tell you right now, note taking is so worth it.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
I didn't notate MGS5, and my editing has gone like probably, I would say, even close to like 8 to 10 times faster just because of note taking. Like the time that you put in is exponentially better once you get out.
So like Fallout 76 was the first project where I really took note taking very seriously, and it's the first project where I feel like I didn't leave anything off the table that I forgot. Like if I didn't put it into the video, it's because I made a conscious decision not to put it in. But like there's stuff in my other videos where I'm like, I completely forgot to put that in, and it's just because I wasn't taking good enough notes.
My note taking varies on the project. So the most detailed notes I've taken are on the Gothic project, because I need to remember details from unique, each faction, depending on there's 3 factions for the first 2 games. And each faction has unique dialogue. And in Gothic 2 especially, they have unique perspectives to the story. You really have to play the game 3 full times with each faction to fully experience, like get the full context of what's going on. I do have a notepad that's got timestamps and the name of the file, and it's basically like something as simple as I'm doing a dexterity build, and at dexterity 90 in Gothic 2 with the DLC you get acrobatics. Acrobatics not just reduces fall damage, but it makes it to where when you jump you actually roll forward, and you can actually like spam that to move. Like it feels like double speed. It's a lifesaver when you move so slow. So something like that, especially with it being a year since I've even touched the project, I would never find that. Mm-hmm. I would know it's in my dexterity playthrough. I would never know. So it's like I name the files to like hit the highlights of what's going on. I took detailed notes so that when I'm editing, I can just scroll through, be like, this file, this timestamp, boom, done. So I didn't know about the markers. I'm gonna have to start looking into that though.
Markers makes it super easy. Yeah, for sure.
Especially when you color code them. So like,
Yeah.
because like with Fallout 76, some of my recordings were like 9 hours long. I think was the longest one. So that would have like 200 plus markers in it. So like, if they were all just the default blue, I wouldn't know what the hell was going on.
Hey, remember when we played Fallout 76 until 3 a.m?
Oh my gosh.
So at Red Dead
Which
Redemption,
night?
yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2, I had detailed notes down to what missions there were, and then you can set a start point, end point on a marker in Premiere, and so I would stretch it out over the entire timeline, and it's this mission from Red Dead Redemption 2 is here, and that was just for a 30-minute video. When it came to my Skyrim project, I finally got corkboard pilled. So I have a corkboard up above my monitor, which is 5 post-it notes wide by I think 7 post-it notes tall. At different stages of the Skyrim project, the entire thing was taken up with post-it notes.
Wow.
Even with like color-coded stuff. So like the top row was literally a deadline, and there were 2 lines that were racing each other. One was the day, and one was the project progress. And I had that sitting over my monitor for 7 months ahead of when the Skyrim video came out.
How many months was the UESP open on your browser?
Probably every day.
Yeah, because I never shut down my PC. I rarely close out tabs or projects that I'm working on, just because like, why am I going to close it out? I'm going to open it up again in like 6 hours. So when I'm working on like especially when I'm writing the scripts, for the most recent Skyrim video, I think the UESP was open in my browser for like 4 months straight.
Only thing I would like to add regarding the Ragnarok project specifically is the biggest issue I have with it is launching the game, because I've been through the story going on 4 times. I'm almost done with my New Game Plus playthrough. And then I have to go and do a detailed breakdown of all 9 of the Berserker fights. And if you thought that they were annoying and frustrating on New Game, my God, they just had to make it harder. And the worst example I got, because, fights against multiple enemies in this game just completely falls flat and breaks down. The worst example I got is one of the Berserkers going for a super fast kick ability that you have to see coming because he can launch across the map, and he started it from behind the other Berserker, and that killed me instantly because I'm playing on the highest difficulty. So the thought of... I don't get excited to play this game. I dread it, and I cannot wait for it to be over.
That was 76, all right, towards the end. A lot of people have asked, like, why don't you cover games that you like? I do occasionally, but it has been a while. And I'm not opposed to the idea. I'm thinking about doing Death Stranding ahead of Starfield, because I want to talk about big open worlds where traversal is a focus in mechanics. Because a lot of people are getting very agitated over the prospect of procedural generation. And I think that's something that people are over worrying about.
I have always liked procedural generation. I think it can be done very well. And I always go back to Daggerfall for this. It's like, I will stand by it. Daggerfall dungeons are perfectly fine. Anyone who's complaining that they get lost or they don't know what they're doing, they're not using the map. That's why. Anyone who says that because I played the DOS version of Daggerfall, so anyone who says the map doesn't show hidden doors and I keep getting lost, you're not using it, because it absolutely does. It's I get super defensive over that.
I just replayed Death Stranding not long ago.
Should I
It's so
redeem
good.
my director's cut key or keep playing the launch version?
I wouldn't know. I haven't played Director's Cut.
Okay. I was curious. I wanted to ask somebody that knows about Death Stranding.
It doesn't seem like it. Like I did a little research before we played again, because I wanted to play it with my wife so that she would know it, so that we could play Death Stranding 2 together. And I did a little bit of research, and it didn't seem like they changed a whole lot in terms of like the story.
Well, if I do a Death Stranding video, it's just going to be mechanics.
Oh, okay.
Mechanics and world, and it's going to be like a 30-minute thing. And I promise it'll be a 30-minute thing because I'm not going to touch the story, and stories where most of the bloat happens.
I will say regarding your people asking why they don't play games that they like, it's like, I don't want to cover a game that I like. I like this game because I haven't covered it.
Oof.
I do cover games that I like. I think a lot of people kind of miss that, like, I'm all right with No Man's Sky. A lot of my complaints in that video were owed to, like, the buggy state that it goes in and out of being functional between patches. And I liked Red Dead Redemption. I actually liked Red Dead Redemption 2. But I mostly talked about the stuff that doesn't work in that game. But that gives people a lot of impression that I didn't like that game. And no, I did.
Well, yeah, so it's like, I'm doing a video on City Skylines. I literally start the video by saying, just so you're aware, I consider this like one of my top 10 favorite games. That said, you're going to hear a lot of complaining about the inadequacies of it because I just find that makes for more interesting videos and more like interesting discussions. It's great to point out when something's, does it right, but it doesn't really... I don't know. I guess it's just like I find it easier to discuss how something gets it wrong than pointing out how everything does something right.
It's easier to write criticism than compliment.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know. I start to compliment games a lot. I did this with like my Mass Effect 1 video. It's one of the reasons I don't really like it too much. It just starts to come across like I'm just sitting there talking the game up like I'm trying to sell it.
I also don't have big plans ahead for this topics I cover, and so it's just kind of an unfortunate coincidence that we're like, right now we're back to back on stuff that I don't like.
Yeah, and not to mention, it's like people don't seem to realize that just because I'm covering a game that I do like, it's like, I like the game, but that doesn't mean all my criticisms are going to be, this is an issue, but that's okay, because I like this game. It's like, I'm not going to do that. If nothing else, I'm going to be abusive to this game because I love it. And that's kind of
case in
kind
point,
of
the
how I am with
Morrowind
Gothic.
video.
Yeah, I think one of the lines I say at the introduction of Gothic is like, I love this series to death since playing it because I just, experienced it for the first time back in 2021, and I said I am not going to go easy on this series because I know it can take it. It's like what it does well, it does exceptionally well, but it's also one of the biggest, jankiest disasters I've ever played in my life, but that's kind of what makes it special at the same time. So, yeah, I'm going to shred that series apart, and I'm really looking forward to the remake.
Alrighty, let's get on to our punching down discussion. So, there was a small Twitter kerfuffle the other day that I had. I don't know if you guys saw the meme I made. Let me see if I can pull it up while I introduce the topic. We're not really talking about the drama, though. The drama is not particularly interesting as it stands. This is more so kind of discussion on the general topic of punching down. This is a general topic on the discussion of punching down because it's going to come up next time I do a stream series, because at this point I'm in kind of the middle of the pack on YouTube where there's still people in media analysis who are bigger than me. I think Joseph Anderson has like 800,000 subs, right? But now there are a lot of people who are smaller than me. And so there's this kind of perception that some people hold that if I cover their videos, I'm punching down at them. I thought it would be interesting to have a conversation with that because we have a decent mix here of, I would say I'm a moderate-sized YouTuber. I'm not big, but I'm not small anymore either. And then we have Private, who's 30K plus, and then you two guys that are like around the 3K range. And that's what the drama was about, was they thought I was punching down on a guy who had 3,000 subs. So the meme, for anybody who's listening, I'll probably post a variation of it on screen of like Matty Plays thumbnails, because I know he probably has similar ones, just so that like it really isn't about the drama, because this could apply to any Bethesda channel right now that's out there shilling Starfield. So the first thumbnail on the right is you should absolutely be excited for Redfall. And then this was before launch. That's the joke, is that it's before launch and they're excited for Redfall. And then the second thumbnail is Starfield is going to be incredible. And it's a basic pattern. They were excited for Redfall and it bombed. Now they're excited for Starfield. What do you think is going to happen next? It's a basic joke. It's so minor of a goof. It's not even criticism. I said that to the person, like, I don't consider this criticism in the slightest. It's a joke. It's just contrasting two thumbnails that side by side because I think it's funny. And that's why I didn't like post the person's name or anything when I posted it. But somebody looked it up because they had to look it up. I think it's because of the view counts that they were like, this person must be small. So the topic came up that it was me punching down at them, and it turned into a whole kerfuffle. So
Okay, well, I want to know, what is the definition of punching down? Because just today, I was looking at somebody's Discord channel, and one of their rules amongst, like normal people who have no channels or anything is no punching down in the discussions. So now I am thoroughly confused what people are even using this word to describe. So please, somebody define it for me.
Okay, so let's go around the circle and kind of give our own definitions of what it is, and I'll go last on this one. What do you think it is, private sessions?
All right, so I always assumed it was somebody with like a large following making fun of or criticizing or just unfairly picking on somebody who's has a much smaller size following. Not saying that I really agree that it even exists, but I always assumed that was the general consensus of what the definition was. Now I'm not so sure.
All right, Tetramore?
Yeah, so again, segregating how I actually feel about the term from the definition, most people that I've seen use it in the sense of a larger channel berating a smaller channel for their opinions or discussions or critiques or content.
And then that's not your opinion on it, obviously.
Not necessarily.
Okay, and then Salty, what do you think?
Basically exactly what they said, except I've also never really heard anyone use this term outside of, I guess in general, I've never heard anyone use it, so it wasn't until I kind of started getting into like the quote-unquote YouTuber drama surrounding like analysis content that I started hearing it a lot.
All right. My perception is going to be influenced by the fact, and then I do have to give this story. When I released the Morrowind video, I had 80 subs, and very quickly I had 20,000, like within a month. So I leapfrogged 2 different tiers of YouTuber, because there's tiers of it, and a lot of people are stupid with this. Like, there's people out there who think that if you have less than 1 million subscribers, you're small, which isn't true. But the tiers that are conventionally recognized in professional YouTube space is when you get monetized, which the threshold went down recently, but when you get monetized to when you have 10,000 subscribers, you're just a contender. You're in the game, but you're not really a player. After you pass 10,000 subscribers, you start to be a player. You start to be this competitive person in the space who has a chance of making it big. And then at some point along the way, you get big, and there's different signs for it. Some people say that like your silver play button is a good example of when you get big. Now, what's interesting is Oblivion stream series happened around 30K. Skyrim stream series happened around 65K. Now I'm at 138,000, and I've officially, like, I'm now big enough that I can get accused of punching down on this matter. And like I said, it kind of happened with the Skyrim video, even though it was like kind of side punching. My view of it is, if you just want the definition that I think the most people would agree upon, big person unfairly criticizing small person. Because, and I think this is important because I was thinking about this topic last night when I went for a walk. Jim Jones had what? A following of like 100 people? So when mainstream media made fun of Jim Jones, were they punching down? No, that's stupid, right? You can have people on this platform that think really stupid things at like 100 subs. And I know that you were going to bring it up, but I'm going to kind of steal this. So Acerthorn is a classic example of a really small creator who has about 2.5 thousand subscribers that has made the rings up into the millions of subscriber range of people making fun of the guy. Nobody with common sense is going to say that they're punching down at Acerthorn because Acerthorn isn't being unfairly criticized. Well, he'd disagree, but a lot of people understand that it's not punching down in that situation because Acerthorn has done things that merit that kind of criticism. What it is like it's some guy who's making videos on his off time that he doesn't want to be a YouTuber. He's just making videos for fun and like they're public, but that's so that his friends can see it, right? And you like go in and start making fun of that guy. That's punching down to me. And I would agree that that is wrong. But in my view, if you are trying to be a YouTuber, even just trying to be a YouTuber, you're fair game.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that. Especially since it's like something that comes to my mind when I think of punching down. It's like, and I know we will get into this a little more. It's like, what is? I don't see something like that, like the example you used, as punching down. That's basically just targeted harassment at that point. It's like you're just picking someone smaller than you and you're choosing to like go after them like that. If it's like you said with Acerthorn, if it's valid criticism, or even if you have my mentality, it's like if I do consider myself a self-respecting YouTuber, even though it's just a hobby. I take pride in my work, which is why I think it's as good as it is. It's like if someone comes at me specifically and they are just completely dunking on my video, my first reaction isn't going to be looking at their sub count and saying, well, they're punching down. My first reaction is going to be, what did I do or say wrong in this video to warrant this level of like hate? If it's my prototype video and they're like, oh, you made this joke, it's like, yeah, okay, fair game. But if it's something like legitimate, like because I guess I take like being factually correct very seriously in my videos. That's why it takes so long, because I fact check myself so often. If it's something like that, it's like, okay, what did I say that was incorrect? Kind of like, the thing that was we were talking about earlier, like, Super Rad just released his 12.5 hour long Oblivion retrospective, and some of the guys in your server were saying like the first hour is spent just recapping like character creation and basic surface level stuff that could be summed up in like 5 minutes. And so the criticism is,
I think as we speak,
basically
there are
like
like 8 people in the voice chat watching that video together.
yeah, exactly. So it's like the criticism is that he's just bloating the video. He doesn't actually have any analysis. He doesn't have anything to say. He just wants a 12.5 hour long video. You being a bigger creator than him, it's like he could, I guess you could say it's within his quote unquote rights to take it that since it's your audience by proxy, you are punching down. If you want to come to that conclusion, I would question it, but I can see it.
Well, okay, so we were talking about like potentially he has a problem with me because I allow kind of more like he's definitely one of the more criticized content creators on my server. There's a few people that I think do harbor a serious grudge against him. I've never seen any of his videos, and I take everything that I've heard about the guy at face value. I don't know anything about him. If I were to like find a reason to dislike his video and to criticize it, it still wouldn't be punching down, even though he's like, I think he's at 75K. I just don't think it'd be punching down. He's a monetized creator. I think he's full-time at this point. So that's definitely not punching down. And I'm going to be completely honest. If I tomorrow started making jokes about you guys that are in the 3K range, I still don't think that would be punching down. Because what I did wasn't unfair or wasn't criticism. Like I said, it's a joke. It's just look at this pattern.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like was a super long and roundabout way of me saying, once you upload your video, if you are going to call it an analysis, retrospective, whatever, once it's up, it is fair game for like valid criticisms. It's like me being sub 3K subscribers has nothing to do with the fact that if you were to take like my first video, my Last of Us 2 video, if you were to take that and you were to start criticizing my delivery, my thought process, stuff like that, that's valid criticism. Just because I'm a smaller YouTuber doesn't mean that the criticism's not valid. So, so if people were putting me on blast, the first thing I would be doing is rewatching the video and being like, where did I go wrong? How can I not do this in the future? I guess, but maybe I'm unique in that thought process because I'd rather be criticized than given positive reinforcement because I don't really know how to take it, especially in the workplace. So
I think that the specific situation that Pat found himself in with that joke shows that the way that a lot of people use it, and this is why I say I don't necessarily agree with the definition, is that a lot of people use it just to sort of divert criticism, like even if it's valid, or any sort of like joking or anything, so that they can defend themselves without needing to defend themselves. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, that's not fair because you have 100,000 subs. Like this person only has 3. You can't expect or whatever. It's a diversion. It's saying something that has no substance in order to
Well,
get yourself out of jail. You know,
what's most amusing is that it was used by proxy. So it wasn't the
Yeah.
person that was being made fun of that had an issue with it. I think he had an issue with it, but it was somebody who just kind of had an issue with it in general. And that's kind of why the discussion is happening, because it's one thing to have a problem with somebody doing that to you if you're a creator. I think it's perfectly valid to not want to associate yourself with spaces where you get criticized a lot. Because I'm pretty sure Superad used to be in my server, and he probably saw, I think it was around the time that they were like talking about his Fallout 3 video, and at that point he had accrued a negative reputation. And I think he didn't want to be around that. And I personally think that's completely valid, that you don't want to be around criticism of yourself. Valid or no. I think you're allowed to ignore criticism and do your thing. It's good form to take in criticism. But the problem with a lot of internet commentary criticism also is that people will still comment on things that you did wrong, even after the fact, even after the point that you've taken it in and worked on that as a person.
Yeah,
like-
I think an aspect of punching down is also like repetition. If somebody's like repeatedly criticizing like one specific creator or something like that, and that creator is like not reciprocating or anything, I think after a point, regardless of size or something, you call it punching down, call it whatever you want, it turns into more like a harassment situation. That's also not, you don't want that situation either.
And so the term almost becomes pointless, because either a lot of people see it as an invalid term, or the context of what happens becomes a different thing, where it goes from punching down to harassment, like you said. And so it gives a sort of meaninglessness to it.
Well, so like, one of the things that I was considering with this is like, okay, so if we recognize, say we recognize punching down is a valid thing, no matter what, it's just purely based on the numbers and stuff. Then it's like, okay, well, now we have to consider clout chasing then to also be equally valid. So if you're a small channel criticizing a larger channel, well, if they're capable of punching down just for criticizing you, then they're just as capable of accusing you of clout chasing for criticizing them. And it becomes you can't have discussions in an environment like that. It becomes very hostile, and then just discussions start to break down, and it just turns into name calling at that point.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because the situation did remind me a lot of JXC versus Hassan over on Twitch. I don't know if you guys are terribly familiar with the situation, but basically JXC had some criticisms of Hassan because he just watched his video and at one point like left the room for 10 minutes or something and let the video play on his stream. And so the base criticism is that like these reaction streamers over on Twitch, they just steal videos. And it wasn't just about him doing it to Jay. It's that he does it to a lot of different content creators. And it was a real big problem at the time. It could still be a problem. I don't watch Twitch, but Hassan's reaction to that criticism was to just say that Jay was clout chasing. So it does cut both ways, where it is a fallacious defense. You can say it's punching down when you're smaller than them, and you can say it's clout chasing when you're bigger than them. And YouTubers love clout chasing. It's a very cutthroat game. I know that there's some people out there who don't like to hear that YouTubers backstab and YouTubers clout chase and will take advantage of situations with each other, and that a lot of them really aren't friends. I know that people like to think that it's a community thing, and it can be a community thing, but there are those sharks out there that will take advantage of any situation.
I hate everyone in this chat. Just as a case in point.
I love everyone. I would never hurt anybody.
Oh yeah, I'm not an asshole. I'm the nicest guy you'll ever meet in your life.
So much sarcasm.
Man, Sarcasm's basically my first
It's the
language, is
people
what I'm told.
it's the people who say that about themselves. And so here's my biggest red flag: when I see a community that's saying we're the best community, we're very like wholesome and stuff, those are the communities you got to watch out for.
Oh yeah, it's always the people who pretend to be nice that end up being like the biggest sharks.
Mm-hmm.
And so
something I told my... Sorry, go ahead.
I talk a lot of smack on my server about people's videos when I watch them. I give honest opinions. And, you can say that there's YouTubers out there that would avoid ever doing that because they don't want to foment drama. So I think, like, Private, you were telling me that, like, Mandalore, for instance, had a general criticism of the analysis community of whenever analysis people blame it on the engine. They say it's an engine limitation.
Mm-hmm.
And I've thought that that's fallacious, too. There's many times with the creation engine thing where I'm like, it's not an engine limitation so much as it's a programmer limitation. It's a staff limitation. Because there are studios out there that are still using engines 25 years later. The interesting thing about the way that Mandalore said it, though, is that he wasn't targeting it at anybody. Because Mandalore is in the camp of people who seems to not want to make any situation... he doesn't want to name names. He never wants to, like, publicly criticize people. I think he might when, like... those types of people do when it's socially convenient. But otherwise it's, oh, we don't do drama here and all that. And I'm not saying that Mandalore's a shark. I actually think he's the real deal. But there are a lot of people who are sharks and do pretend that it's all peachy.
One of the things that, I don't remember if I actually said this on a stream or if I said it at all, I feel like I did, is I basically told my viewers, I was like, yeah, I'm still small, so I'm going to say this now. Don't put me on a pedestal. Do not idolize. I am a terrible person to try and idolize because it's only a matter of time before I say something stupid that, not even something like offensive, just I make a really, really stupid comment that I did not fully think through, and I want my viewers' reaction to be, okay, yeah, he's an idiot. That's about on par. I don't want there to be some like shock factor of like everyone's opinion of me changes because I was just this nice. I put myself up as the nicest guy on YouTube, and I'm so nice in conversation, and then you see me make some like offhanded comment about another creator that shocks you. It's like, no, I'm just gonna be open about it. It's like, am I nice? Yes. Am I an asshole? Yes. I think that's how all people are.
Well, I throw a lot of flack around. The whole point of this podcast is like, these are the people that I think you should watch. I just feel it's natural to like, because that's where the stream series idea came from, was I was watching Will Loves Video Games video on Oblivion and like posting about it on Discord, and it came to be so much that like I decided to live stream the process. But, and at the time...
Yeah, you were punching down on Acerthorn because you criticized his, I don't know if you saw that short someone posted in your server.
Mm-hmm.
You showed that clip of him talking about, like, if you unshackled Radiant AI, it would, like, make PCs explode.
Yeah.
And he's like, why would you say this about my video, but you didn't say that about Will Loves Video Games, like, Oblivion video? And Will was, like, very obviously making a joke about, like...
because it's funnier with Acerthorns.
Yeah.
Look, it's a funny thing to say. And that Acerthorn is definitely a guy that could not take any kind of praise. I remember I said in the video that like Acerthorn has an alright video on Skyrim if you ignore the audio quality, and then he's like, oh well, actually, some of us can't afford nice equipment. And it's like, dude, come on. Like, who the fuck are you kidding? Everybody who listens to your video can say that it's not a pleasant listening experience.
In my experience as a YouTuber that isn't afraid to name names and stuff or put other people's videos on my screen as examples, I had a video, a scroll of all of the videos I thought were exemplary of bad criticisms of Metal Gear Solid 5 right in the start of that video. And then I played a quote from Paper Starship's video on MGS2 that I thought was exemplary of bad criticism of that game, and he actually commented on the video and was like, hey, I know we disagree, but this is a great video and all this sort of stuff. Like, generally speaking, I feel like most of the time that I've had experience actually like criticizing someone, like another creator, and then them like responding, it's been really cool. Like, and most of the time when people are like coming at you, especially Pat, for like punching down or cloud chasing or whatever, it's coming from their fans, not them.
Yeah, and that's kind of the whole point of the conversation is like to talk to the fans and say like, look, if you have this perception, you need to leave it up to the YouTuber if it bothers them. So like Indigo is an example of somebody that we made a connection with because we watched his Elder Scrolls documentary, and I pointed some stuff out, and like he's very good faith about that stuff. He called me, and we troubleshooted together what had happened with his Skyrim save to cause him to have modded stats, because he was very adamant that he didn't use mods, like super adamant. And so we troubleshooted together, figured out what happened, and then we had the podcast, and it's been a pretty good relationship since. Where like I went on his show, and like he hangs out in our community now, and like we share each other's stuff and what have you. And that all started from criticism. But it's not always positive either, because I think strategy was like a bridge that was burned. Because he was hanging out in the stream chats until we covered his Skyrim video, and then suddenly he stopped hanging out so much.
I haven't burned my bridge with strategy yet because he doesn't know who I am, but after seeing his Gothic video, give it time.
No.
Because he didn't even finish the game, and still, I don't know. This is sort of, call this punching up, or clout chasing, if you will. I think if you didn't finish the game, and so basically what Gothic does is Gothic has an open world, similar to Morrowind. You are the creatures in the world are gatekeeping you from other areas. So what it does is it starts you out where it's like you have a guide walking you around, leading you from camp to camp so they can kill all the wolves that are going to one-shot you. And then a little while later, it's like you get a set of armor, because armor is really infrequent, so it's a really, really good upgrade. You like feel it immediately. You get some armor, you start fighting some tougher enemies. There's a quest at the end of chapter 3, 2 or 3, where it sends you around the map. It's like, okay, you're strong enough, go kind of spread your legs a little bit, get out there. And then there is another quest in chapter 4, I want to say, where it's like, okay, prove to me that you can conquer this map, go kill every one of the toughest enemies, one of which are complete bullshit and will one-shot you every time, but not talking about that. So it's basically like a challenge, and he criticized the fact that the game was going to make him walk around the map for like a third time, which I sort of understand, but you also get teleportation runes and swiftness potions to sprint. You're supposed to have like resources, and that's where he ended the videos. He didn't even go into like the final dungeon, the quote unquote final boss. He just stopped it there. He's like, I'm not doing this. And I was like, but you're going to upload your review anyways?
I'm glad you gave the context, because at face value, if he said somebody made a video and they didn't finish the game, I don't see that as a problem insofar as if the game was so much of an obstacle that they couldn't finish it, but they still want to do like some kind of coverage about why it was an obstacle. I think the context in that case is like kind of unfair. It definitely indicates that like he struggled to learn the kind of mechanical systems that were going on and the ideas that the game was exploring.
Yeah, and it's also, it's like, how do I want to put this? So I feel like it's very abrupt at the end of the video. It's like everything is fine until he gets to that quest, and then he goes on a tangent about how he doesn't want to do it, and then he ends the video prematurely, basically. And another person left a comment and said something like, well, I'm kind of embarrassed that I wasted this much time watching your video just for you to end it, not even finishing it, because you didn't want to go around the map. And he replied to that comment, I believe, and said, like, it's not the fact that I can't do it, it's that I don't want to do it for a third time. It's like, I feel like if you get to that point, I mean, trust me, I, of anyone else, understands, like, playing and replaying a game you hate just to be thorough. So I cannot...
I don't even think that's thorough. I think it's an obligation.
Yeah, it's not.
There's an obligation to try.
Yeah, exactly. So that I watched that video, and I mean, I'm not a fan of his content. He's one of the people in his Daggerfall video who was criticizing the dungeons while also in the same breath saying, I don't use the map because it's clunky. There's your problem, dude. Didn't call him out in my Daggerfall video because that was too small, but it's like, yeah, it comes to a point where it's like you have to approach the game
small in size or small in topic.
Yeah, so...
No, I'm asking, did you not include it because you were a small creator or because it was just a small point?
Oh, I misheard you. I guess a mixture of both. It's like I don't go out of my way looking for drama for that reason, but I think when I made the Daggerfall video, I was at like sub 500 subs, so I think I was in the 250 range.
The Skyrim video was an evolution of ideas that I was testing with the Oblivion video of including other people's content in my criticism, sort of as defenses or reaffirmations and like as useful statistics of like, hey, what's the level that everybody gets to when they play Skyrim? Oh, it seems to be mid-40s, right? All useful stuff, but there are people who don't appreciate it because, like I said, there's people out there who are like allergic to any kind of dramatic interactions. And so to some extent, I think that there is a bit of bridge burning, and I have a lot of respect for people who are willing to try and have a conversation about it. Like Indigo, I have immense respect for, just for doing that.
For sure.
I can tell in I'm not going to say our circle because I'm not really part of the circle, but in this Discord circle, it seems like there's a list of, I don't want to say that the servers have like a list of people who are notorious for not being willing to have that, but you know, whenever you hear like a certain YouTuber's name invoked, it's never positive.
Well, this was a conversation that was had when I started the submissions channel. There was a concern that like certain people that get posted in the submissions channel are going to be voted down just because of who they are, which wasn't true because immediately Noah Caldwell Gervais had a video posted that got a lot of votes, and H Bomber Guy had a video posted that got a lot of votes, and those are both people that have been criticized fairly significantly on my server at different points by different people. And so I really think that goes to show that like people in my community are willing to give chances and second chances to stuff just to see if problems were addressed. So like, Salty, weren't you the person that sent me the Salt Factory clip from Outer Worlds?
Yeah, I think I was actually. I couldn't remember in your Skyrim video if that was me specifically, but I feel like it was, because we were, I wasn't the one who started watching it, but I was watching through it, and I heard him get to that, like, I don't know the development history of this game, and I think I was the one who was like, instead of saying that, why don't you look it up?
Which is funny, because I found a source that talked about it within, like, it was actually, like, within 10 minutes.
Yeah, I saw on the video you actually put, like, the overlay of you going to YouTube and finding the interview, and them saying, like, yeah, this is the first Unreal Engine game we've ever made.
Yeah, so like Salt Factory is definitely somebody that like people get frustrated with in my community because he's heard the criticism. He's somewhat kind of acknowledged it in his Mass Effect video, and then like nothing changed about the way that he like approaches research. And so that really frustrates people. Whereas like I think H Bomber Guy and Noah Caldwell Gervais to some extent kind of listen to their criticism, and so people are willing to give those guys multiple chances. Some people don't, and that's fine.
It also comes down to, like, I guess a personal standards thing where it's like, it's hard for me not to get in that mindset of, if I can do this, why can't you, bigger YouTubers everywhere?
Yeah.
It's like, if I can manage to get lucky and stumble across a German wiki that is like a treasure trove of information on the Gothic series, and I can Google Translate the pages to find out, like, what level certain items start spawning and try to get the stats, it's really easy for me to look at stuff like Salt Factory, like you said, or even Strategy with him not finishing the game and be like, other than a time constraint, what is your excuse?
Yeah.
Because I know you're just not willing to do this.
And I said that in the Skyrim video, that I understand a big limitation with Salt Factory is simply that he puts out more videos a year than we do. And so with that, something has to give. Something has to be given up. Either he has to have an employee or some standard has to drop just to meet that kind of content production schedule. And he fills a niche, and people like that niche, and that's fine. He doesn't have to go harder on the research, but like there are points where like it strains disbelief just because of how trivial it would be to find some information about games. Like Outer Worlds has a significant amount of its development history be very public.
And something else that I thought when I was just thinking about the topic in general is it's like, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with filling that niche. You know, I think you described it as just the average guy talking about video games. And I don't think you have to do a ton of research, and you don't have to absolutely break down the systems in autistic detail for every video, but you have to be honest about that's what you're doing. You can't say like this is a legitimate in-depth analysis of a game when you know it's just a casual commentary with some occasionally funny jokes mixed in, and it's just supposed to be played in good fun. I know a channel that has gone through a couple rebrandings since I found him. Matt's XP is his current channel name. He did a really popular video on Fallout 1 where he is commentary, occasional analysis, but even he at one point looked up interviews about like the cathedral section of Fallout 1 near the end, which I actually took and reused that quote in my Greedfall video because it was relevant to the ending of the game and how they slow you to a crawl with basically a boss rush of bosses you've already fought 10 times. So even then it's like that's what he's trying to do. That's his niche. That's perfectly fine. But he seems sincere about that's what he's doing, not trying to push off, you know, like this is, I'm going to use Super Rad as an example again. This is a 12.5 hour long Oblivion retrospective. It's a 12.5 hour long Oblivion video, but I don't feel like it meets the criteria from what I was seeing of like in-depth legitimate analysis. So why advertise it that way?
Yeah, it's one thing to, you know, like I do the same thing where like I put a word salad description in my video just for like the algorithm, but what I put in my thumbnail and my title, like that's, I'm selling it that way for a reason. I'm not gonna, you know, try and sell like a 20-minute review as an in-depth analysis in my title. That's just kind of misleading.
Yeah, when I put critique and analysis in all my thumbnails, I mean it. Like that's why I'm not sure if it's just a personal issue, but that's why being factually correct is the most important thing. And it's like, do not say something incorrect, because the people who are never going to play this game are never going to know. Mm-hmm. And they're going to take it. You get big, they start repeating it, then it comes out that you're wrong, and it just makes you look bad.
Yeah, that's how the myth of like one dude doing all the dungeons in the one dude doing all the dungeons in Oblivion gets like
dungeon designer. Where did we figure out that started?
And I don't know where it started, but I mean I'm guilty of
it started
saying
with
it.
the Skyrim marketing material. They said in the marketing material for Skyrim that they had one guy do the dungeons, and it just wasn't true, because there's multiple people who list in their resumes that they did like more than 40 dungeons for that game.
That's also how you get the arena cut content thingy that you're talking about, where it was like there's like 40,000
there's
lines missing or something.
There's 4,000 Wes Johnson Breton lines in a copy of Oblivion, apparently, that still like hasn't been proven. The ones that have been proven, there is a video that kind of like shows that like it was going to be a thing that he was going to voice Bretons, but I've yet to see an actual like somebody open a folder and show here's 4,000 files of Wes Johnson Breton lines that aren't in the game, because they ended up getting a different voice actor for the role.
Yeah, and one final example I've mentioned a few times, which you can tell how defensive I am, because this one I've heard so many times, is Daggerfall Dungeons. Now for context, even playing the DOSBox version of Daggerfall, like, it's not the Bethesda version, it was just the DOSBox version with no, I don't think I had any additional patches that I didn't know about at the time. Even playing that, it's like, I only failed, there was only one dungeon I couldn't complete because there was like a straight down vertical drop into water, and my character had a swimming skill of like 5, which just meant you could not move in water without Swift Swim, and which you guys know what that means, but someone listening may not. Even then, it's they're like, well, I don't want to spend 4 hours in a dungeon. It's like that. my average dungeon runtime was like 30 minutes. And the only time I spent 4 hours in a dungeon, and I talk about this in the video, was in Wayrest Castle, where you have to jump crouch over a half wall, which I couldn't even pull off. I had to use levitate because I was playing like a two-handed mage hybrid like spellsword type character that I built, and I had to like clip through the wall. That's the only reason it took me that long, is because I thought I had to like pull a lever to open it or something. So, and that's whenever I just identified, it's like, okay, well, where's this coming from? Oh, you don't use the map because it has a learning curve. Oh, you also say that hidden doorways don't appear on maps and that's why you didn't see them. Well, that's just factually not true, because I was checking the map every 15, 20 seconds to find out where I was going, and it made the dungeons super, super enjoyable, but so few people are going to experience that because the modern narrative, I guess, is just that they suck and they're busted, and go install Daggerfall Unity and use the mod to shrink the size, which I just don't think is in spirit of the game. So that one in particular, man, I don't know when I uploaded that video, but I'm still freaking pissed about that.
The first time I played Daggerfall, Unity wasn't a thing yet, but the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages did have like a patcher. It would have like a comprehensive list of things that you might want to have. So that was a thing when I first played Daggerfall. But Unity's gone a long ways for kind of selling people on the game and like getting them used to it by like, because Daggerfall is like a cold shower that just starts, whereas like a lot of people needed like a warm shower that you turn down to cold.
Yeah, that tutorial dungeon is brutal if you don't know what you're doing. Just everything about it. I think not realizing that you can turn on mouse look as opposed to like the default where you have to like click and drag. It's like the Ultima Underworld style movement. Not realizing that you can actually play it like a modern RPG. I think it might also be what gets a lot of people, because had I not been able to do that, I would not have been able to finish the game.
I think
there's just no way.
Jeweler's done a lot of like free PR for Daggerfall.
He did, but I did it first, so not really, but it does predate his video, so I can say that. I think my favorite thing about Jeweler's video is the fact that it doesn't invalidate mine. We very much have two completely different. I take a more like, it's a freeform game, here's a commentary approach to the game, and he takes a much more like ES lore, like super analytical, in-depth take that I didn't.
I'm glad you have that perspective. That's what was important with the Fallout 76 video, was we wanted to make videos that there was like not time wasting. Like, oh, I've heard this already. Go on. Like, so you have two unique Fallout 76 videos that are that were made together and are inexorably tied together, but also can stand on their own. And I think that's a really neat thing. Whereas you do have creators out there who want to be the absolute voice on stuff. They want to make the ultimate review. I think that like there's stuff of like Super Rad where apparently the guy's been grudging to like make this Oblivion video since he saw mine.
Oh yeah, that's why it's 21 minutes longer.
Yeah, which is
he had to be number one.
Which is such like
I hate the term the ultimate review.
Yeah. It's such a it's
the worst.
It's such a sad thing because it's like everybody brings a unique voice to the table.
Yeah.
No, fuck that. I made the best video. It's over. It's done.
Mine's
Don't cover Mass Effect anymore. I did it completely. You're not allowed.
Well, and the other, you know what the other unfair thing is in this little competition? He can upload videos longer than 12 hours because his account is older.
Talk about punching down.
Yeah,
gosh.
Yeah, he's had his account since 2006, so he can actually upload videos longer than 12 hours. I can't. So like, I literally can't beat that on a timestamp situation because I'm not allowed to upload a video longer than that. But I have. It's called the Skyrim video.
Yeah, Private, I have a love-hate relationship with your Mass Effect 2 video, specifically because of the fact that Mass Effect 2 was the first game I played, and the fact that it was, I think it was the first, other than Gears of War years and years ago, it was like one of the first third-person cover shooters I played, so I love that game. And then I went back and played the first one and then the third one. So hearing how bad Mass Effect 2's world building and story is, in the not 100% because it's still not the worst, but the Cerberus stuff and stuff like that actually like hurt.
Yeah, that video was validation of things I had thought for years about that game that like you kind of kept quiet about because you didn't want to be ostracized for mocking the perfect 10 out of 10 Mass Effect game.
I think that's one of my biggest disliked videos too. I think production and stylistically I could have done better, but I stand by everything that I said substance-wise in that video.
Well,
It also taught me the importance of putting music in your videos because there's that one section where you're using Doom 2016 music while talking about Saeed, I think his name is. It's been a while. And I was like, this fits so
like the bounty
perfectly.
hunter dude.
Yeah, it's like this fits so perfectly that I have to do that. And that's why I use SpongeBob music in my Fallen Order video, because it makes talking about the story so much better when it's like the music is the only thing telling you that I hate this.
You gotta find some really good, silly, like annoying music to go behind anytime you're talking about something in a story that you're like, this is stupid.
So
it gets progressively worse because it's like I start with like the Witcher 3 Gwent tracks, so it's like just kind of, just easing you into it, and then just straight up by the end, I'm playing SpongeBob music.
I think my favorite example of that is in Fallout 76 when I'm doing Wastelanders, because I didn't want to use music from other games in that video, so all of that music is from Fallout 76, and Fallout 76 has some like interesting music, especially tied to its events and its scoreboard and stuff. So for the Wastelander section, I was literally using music from one of the public events, and it's just like a banjo playing.
yeah,
And it fits so perfectly. I had to do a bunch of like editing to get it to like last the whole segment, but I was really happy with how that one turned out.
Atom Shop music is amazing for anything that you don't want taken seriously. And in Outer Worlds, the corporate slogan music is actually really good for that too. I sent private a preview of a thing I did where I used one of those soundtracks.
Music is a underrated part of these videos, in my opinion, not just because I'm not gonna say I'm a musician, but I do play instruments and I do have some basic background for like production and mixing, and I mean like basic. But I think it's kind of underrated. Like I'm sure you heard on the scene where Vader shows up at the end of Jedi Fallen Order, I replaced the Revenge of the Sith Duel of the Fates music. I replaced it with V from the Cyberpunk track, and it just fits perfectly. It's like my favorite part.
I do remember that. That actually did stand out to me. Interesting, like cross usage of stuff. So in my Daedric sections, I've done musical memes before. The Oblivion video has most of the Oblivion video musical sourcing is from one section, the Daedric section, where I picked out songs from various pieces of media that match the theme of the Daedric Prince. And then for Skyrim, I used like all World of Warcraft classic music for that part. I think there's might be a couple like songs. That's the most where I pull out from. Otherwise, I use the game's soundtrack, which is I'm not looking forward to doing with Outer Worlds because its soundtrack is kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah, I'm gonna have that problem with Ragnarok because the soundtrack is really good, but it's too loud, not in the volume sense, but in the in your face sense. Yeah. Especially since I don't like it when composers do this. The actual in-game tracks is not what's on the OST. The OST is the production version. So and it goes both ways. There's a section because Bear McCreary in Ragnarok uses a heavy use of motifs for that represent individual characters in his tracks. It's something that I only picked out when I killed the dialogue and really boosted the music. And I noticed in the production version of one of the boss fights where it's this is kind of spoilersy, but no one here cares. I don't think so. It's whenever Kratos and Freya are fighting a boss, and Freya's set up to be like one of the antagonists at the start of the game, and then they kind of reconcile halfway through. And in the production version, it's like it starts out with it's like the first phase of the fight, it's just Kratos fighting, And then Freya joins the fight afterwards. That's when it kicks in her motif, and you can hear that. But in the third phase, it's supposed to play both of their motifs back to back, and it's supposed to really kind of symbolize like them coming together to really kill this thing. And that third phase doesn't trigger that part of the song in the game.
Yeah, I think we kind of nailed all the big topics for punching down, because it's kind of a silly conversation. It's either a term of convenience or it really doesn't mean anything, or it turns into harassment and then it's a completely different issue. Because I think we all agree harassment's not a good thing.
Of course. And also, don't be too attached to the people that you watch on YouTube, because we're all fallible, and someday we may be criticized, and a lot of the times that's going to be valid, and you don't need to come to bat for us.
Well, the main thing I want to say to creators who are aspiring to be professional YouTubers is people are going to come to unfair conclusions about your content, independent of whatever the context is. Because that's what the guy kept saying, was like, well, you know, you're not including the context of what happened. And it's like, no, it doesn't matter. They're going to see these two thumbnails on your channel, and they're going to come to a conclusion about you, and there's nothing you can do about that. That's just part of the business. And I'd hate to say it, but if you don't like that, then it's not the job for you. Because it is very difficult to work against people's stigmas. The long form people particularly deal with it a lot, because a lot of people will come to immediate conclusions that, like, this video must not be good because it's past a certain length. You can't change those people. And that's kind of just the nature of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll also say, just, if you know your content's good, then just don't worry about what people think about you personally. It's like, I guess maybe just because I still have a life detached from the internet, that it's like I'm not... Yeah, it's like, put in the work, make sure your stuff is quality, and then if people criticize it, you'll know if you already go into it knowing that you half-assed it, then it's going to be harder to accept that criticism because you know that it's not good work. But if you know it's quality, then when people don't like it, at least you'll have the confidence that, like, I put a lot of work into this, I know it's good. Maybe they say something you can take and improve with it. Maybe they say something that you shrug off and you're just like, okay, heart the comment, move on, pretend I read that type thing, which I do not infrequently. So yeah, just having that confidence in what you do is, in my opinion, the most important thing. Like, I don't have an ego, but I know I do good work, because anything that doesn't meet my standards does not get published.
All right, cool. So there's no promises for future LARP episodes. My mentality towards it is that I do want to keep bringing people that I really think you should watch onto the show. The problem is I don't encounter that many people that I think deserve that kind of, like, that high a level of respect. Most people are just like, yeah, it's an alright video. Or, like, I'm never going to get them to come on something like this, right? My thought is, like, I kind of want to get a few bigger people on now, just so that bring their fans over, get them, and then, like, spread the exposure from there. But I really do encourage you to check these guys out. Even if you've seen, like, some of their older videos and you don't necessarily you didn't like them then, just open your mind, try some of their new stuff, see if they've improved the parts that you didn't like, and be open-minded about content creators on YouTube.
Nice.
All right, let's, the stuff shilling begins. Nobody wants to go? Okay, I'm working on an Outer Worlds video. It's going to be in the range of about 3 hours. It's not going to take me 6 months to produce, because it was written concurrently with the Fallout 76 video and, like, recorded and all that. So it's going to be done a lot sooner. And hopefully I want to do, like, some 30-minute videos about stuff that I think is important ahead of Starfield's release. I talked about Death Stranding being a potential topic. I think I thought of that last night, and I'm really, like, warming up to the idea of just discussing open world traversal mechanics. I think they could be a lot of fun. And then at some point, I'm going to do Hogwarts Legacy. At some point, who knows when. Anybody else?
Yeah, God of War Ragnarok, this year. Gothic, maybe next year, but that one's going to be, like, franchise spanning, not including the game-sized mods. So that one's probably, I'm gonna call it now, that's gonna be my magnum opus, because of just how long it's taken and how proud I am with what I've gotten so far. So hopefully I don't end up compromising and cutting off the third game's unofficial non-Piranha Bytes DLC and then the spin-off game. So if it's all there, it'll be wonderful. If it's not all there, it'll still be long enough to where you'll not really miss it.
I have got a Final Fantasy 13 video in the works, like I said earlier. If you like Kingdom Hearts, I'm in the middle of that series. So Birth by Sleep will come eventually.
And if you like Metal Gear Solid, he's a Metal Gear Solid channel.
That's right. And I'm also working, actually the next video that's coming out is going to be a pretty massive exploration into a particular series. I hadn't said what genre it is yet, but I'm gonna now. So you're the first to hear it, folks. It's horror. It's a horror series, and I'm really excited for that one. It's big. It's long. It's complicated. So
Just like all my past relationships.
All horrors.
Well, that too, yes, but
And I'm working on City Skylines video right now. By the time this thing comes out, the video might already be out for my patrons. Like, I'm
You
close
think you can
to
cut it
being
that
done.
fast?
Yeah,
Cool.
it's gonna be a fast edit. I'm aiming to have it done by like the end of this week. So
Do you think Skyrim Part 3 this year?
yeah, well, the idea, so it's once I finish City Skylines. So the reason I'm doing City Skylines is because at the end of Fallout 76, I said I need to play a game that I actually like. Because if I do Skyrim right after doing 76, I will tear that fucking game apart.
You want to give it a fair chance.
Yeah. So once I'm done with 76, once I'm done writing 76, not 76, Jesus. The game still lives rent free in my head.
rent-free.
It's so bad. It's so bad. No, once I finish writing City Skylines, I'm pretty much going to start writing Skyrim. I mean, I already started writing some Skyrim stuff, like video recording and stuff. That's all done for the most part. I just have to do a day of like B-roll testing and stuff, and I have to finish recording some of the Daedric quests. So it's like a day or two of recording, and then I just got to write. The video is only going to be the stealth. I decided I'm going to do a fourth video, and that's where Dragonborn, Dawn Guard, that's all going to be, and maybe some mod stuff if I want to bloat the project. But so the idea is to have this video done, part 3 done and out before Starfield comes out. Like I have to, because doing that in Starfield at the same time would
Everybody pray
like
for him.
kill me. Yeah, so I was hoping to take some vacations and like trips this summer. I don't think that's gonna happen.
no, you just got divorced. You don't get a vacation.
Yeah.
Still got to work out the
I lost-
settlement.
Yeah, I lost half my income, so got to grind now.
And that wasn't much to begin with, was it?
Well, I took half the box from him.
Was it the side with the windows?
Yeah. Well, you know,
Damn,
it
that's
looked
rough.
good because he cut it out and really did the finish work on it, but it's hard to get a cardboard window to look good. Alrighty, cool. Thanks for listening to LARP number 5. We'll see you guys later.
Thanks for having me, guys.